Welcome, everyone, to our State of the State. My name is Samantha Williams. I'm the Director of Client Services with We Need a Vacation. Um, Today, we'll have a short presentation for you. Here's the agenda. You'll see this here. Just a couple of ground rules because there are so many people that will be in this meeting. If you have any questions while the presentation's going on, if you could just put those in chat. We'll have a couple of team members that'll be monitoring our chat. You should see a little chat icon at the bottom of your Zoom box here for the meeting. Feel free to just open that up and pose your question in there. And then we will have time for an open Q&A. So if you want to save your question, write it down and save it to the end. You'll have an opportunity to unmute yourself, if you will, and then ask your question then as well, whatever is comfortable for you. So let's meet the team. We couldn't fit all of us. We're one big happy family. Couldn't fit all of us on one slide. So we just broke it down to here we have our more of our project managers, leadership, if you will. Jeff and Joan Talmadge are the co-owners of the company, started the company in 1997. Jim is our Chief Operating Officer. Again, there's me, Director of Client Services. And then our Director of Marketing is Jenny Sparrow. And then this slide has our support staff, who I'm sure you've all spoken to at one time or another. There's Jill Lehman, our finance manager. Rebecca is our senior success specialist. She's also handles all our onboarding, so you may have spoken to her when you first signed up. Diane Soleil, Kelsey Walker, Carrie Hillman, and Sarah Da Silva are all on our answering your emails, answering the phones. Our local support staff is here for you all the time to answer any of your questions. So with that being said, I'm actually going to hand it over to Jim to discuss some of our rental season outlook for 2025.
All right. Thank you very much. I will get my face out of there so I can present the rest of this. So let's jump into the state of the state. And it's been a while since I've talked to this group. I last spoke with many of you at our conference in the fall. So where are we as we now are past Memorial Day? We'll take a look back at how our bookings looking and how's the rental market for the Cape Islands. A lot of things have changed. There's been a lot of fluctuation in the market, demand, pricing, and I'm going to touch upon many of these things. But as we look at the bookings overall, this year to last year, we're seeing quite, a bit of an increase in the bookings, representing a really healthy market in the short-term rental industry here on the Cape. The travel industry as a whole, there's some disruptions there. There's disruptions in the just fluctuations in the economy and has impact on travel. But we're really fortunate to be in the Cape and Islands region, where we've talked about for many years how there's just a vast audience, vacationers that come back every single year. It's a drivable distance, so it's not unexpected that we see some increase in bookings here and a really healthy overall market. These are the bookings numbers that we're seeing by region through last week when we took this last report, and it's in comparison to last year. So bookings through mid-May or close to the end of May. When looking specifically just at the summer rental bookings, these are just looking at the peak 10 weeks from the end of June through August. Very similar numbers here as well to the overall booking numbers, and a slight increase Cape Vineyard. Nantucket, a little more, I think that one has a lot more volatility in terms of the number just because we have a lot less data to work with. But overall, what we're seeing is strength in the booking numbers, just reflecting a good overall state of the state of where the vacation rental industry sits for the Cape and Islands. What I'm going to dig into is just kind of several aspects of what we're seeing that make up and give these bookings these numbers. I'll take a look at just overall occupancy, demand, the overall demand from vacationers, and then touch upon pricing, which is a big topic and probably at the forefront of many of homeowners here. So let's take a look at summer occupancy in comparison to last year, and these are showing some strong numbers as well. So what this is showing is the percentage of weeks that have been made available on our active listings, and what percentage of these weeks, the core 10 weeks of the summer, what percentage of those have been booked. And again, out of these 10 core weeks, what we're seeing is that most everything is in, plus or minus 1 to 3%. I'd say there are 7 out of the 10 weeks of the summer are actually performing better than they were last year at this stage. This is through last week. And so this is, again, a good indication of where we're at in comparison to last year. What I did note on this is a couple things is the last 2 weeks of August. We always talk about the last week of August, very difficult to book. Also, not now. That's a little strong to say very difficult to book. It books last. It's not something that someone's planning a vacation throughout the course of the year and saying, I want to go on vacation the last week of August. It's just typically one that books towards later in the season. But these 2 weeks are both appearing have a better percentage in terms of occupancy at this stage. This is, I believe, about 4% higher. The last week of August, about 5% higher than it was last year. And so we've talked over and over again about how this is the place, if you're going to tier your pricing, which you should, but this is the place to pay particular attention to. And perhaps there are some vacationers that are savvy enough to recognize that there is a cost savings as you get towards the end of the summer, and they are booking those a little bit earlier than normal. So that's a good sign. Again, pricing towards the end of the season it should be tiered so that you have some differentiation between the rest of the summer. The other week that stood out here was the post July 4th week. So this year, I believe July 4th is on a Friday. So many people already are taking off Friday. Maybe they have that as a holiday. Perhaps they're taking off a day or two before. They don't generally roll into the following week. So it's not we've seen this for a few years now where the post July 4th week is a little bit lower than other weeks. And even that last week of June we see much higher than the post July 4th week. So again, it almost, if your pricing was to be tiered, could be a chart that you could help guide it by to see which weeks are more popular than others. Okay, let me take a look at overall demand. So what we took a look at is demand starting at the end of the summer. So at the close of 2024, after August, we start looking at what sort of vacationers are coming to our site, the total number of vacationers. So we're looking at these numbers from September through, really, I took this data earlier this week. So through May, up through Memorial Day. And looking back, since this is showing the last 8 years, we can see clearly the spike during the pandemic that we're all familiar with, and talking about how that demand set then, the record demand, it was not something that was going to be sustainable. So it's a pretty clear indication that 24, 25, the last couple of years are leveling out here. We are above where we were back in 2017, 20 through 2020 time period. But there is that leveling out. I'll take a look and show where there was a blip this season, where we saw some downturn during a very specific month. But overall, why we look at these numbers from September on through May is because what we've seen over the past couple of years is bookings that do space out. While January is the peak of bookings, it's the most popular month. It doesn't mean that people aren't planning in advance. You have people that are leaving their summer vacations during the summer, and they may be interested in rebooking for the following year. So you have plenty of people, and they're looking to rebook the same home, or they start looking. There's plenty of people that start looking for the next summer already for a different home. So there is opportunity to take advantage of early bookings. Look to find those early planners, and just, even though many of you may be focused on how to get your remaining summer 2025 weeks booked, shortly within, by June, when we open up the search for 2026, it's an opportunity to potentially even put your pricing in for that week and get some early bookers or at least early interest coming into the next season. But the demand overall that I was talking about, what we're looking at, let me show you the comparison to last year. And this tells it's a pretty clear picture of what happened since January. And while, like I said, January being the strongest month, it still was a strong month. It was a little bit below where we were last year, but you see that significant drop in February. And so that's something that not just our market, our travel industry as a whole, like the month of February, there was a lot more uncertainty that we were facing with in the economy. There was the changes to the administration. There was a stock market volatility, a job uncertainty. It created the uncertainty creates a little bit of hesitation, and that's what we've observed. And so this was down about 11%, 12% vacationers in the month of February. So that was something that was significant compared to the other months. We see that since then, a little bit of a return to normal March and April, and significantly, clearly, is the month of May, where that percentage has jumped up to 20%. So if there was this hesitation in February, maybe this is part of the rebound of vacationers that had put a pause on their planning to see how things shaped up. And as we move into May, it's a great sign because after January and February, you see increases each month. May, June is stronger, July even more inquiries will be had. So plenty of opportunity for those with summer weeks still available. Now the pricing as I showed the demand coming back, maybe back to earth, we also see the pricing, and these charts are for each of the areas, the average increase in initial prices, what percentage change was there year to year. And typically what we see is 1 to 3% year over year as being the change in price. And over this too, with the record demand came record increases in price. And so we had a few years where not just, if 1 to 3 was the average, we were averaging, well over 10% in some years. Last year finally came back, I'd say come back to normal. I believe Cape Cod was at about 2%. So right back where we, normal levels. And this year it was sitting under 1%. Same thing with the Vineyard. Vineyard last year still was at a high level, which was very surprising back then, 5% increase. So what we're seeing is the lower increase in price, finally some level of stabilization, both in the demand and the pricing. And it's a reflection of that the stabilization of pricing is matching where the demands are at. Again, the pricing increases that we've been seeing were not going to be sustainable. So, as much as we talk about the costs that you homeowners need to take into account, all the increases in costs for all the other services that you're handling, of course, some of that has to pass over to the vacationers. At this point, what we're seeing is that the average pricing is coming down, and trying to match what demand is here. In addition, what we're seeing is over the course of this 2025 season is decreases in pricing throughout the season. And this is typical. As homeowners, you set your price, see how the market reacts. What we saw was that we saw pricing actually start to come down earlier than normal. So there were slight drops in pricing. The average price would start to come down starting in January, February. We see that there were homeowners that were being a little less risk averse and trying to come down in price based upon the early results. Now, what we're seeing as we look at what sort of price drops are occurring as we enter post-Memorial Day, the month of May, we're seeing large drops in price that upwards of 10%. And so that's something that all homeowners need to consider depending on the number of weeks or which weeks it is that are still available for you is, how aggressive were you with your pricing? And perhaps it's an opportunity to take a look at whether a drop in price to secure those last couple weeks that you have available. If you have more than a couple weeks available, then certainly take a much closer look at your pricing and see how to better assess an appropriate price for the remainder of this year. And it's not surprising as you get into the what we'll call the last minute time period. People look, there are going to, like I said, the demand is still there for last minute bookings. There, you'll see that all the way through July. And so there it will be opportunities to secure those bookings. Now, all this being said, I wanted to focus on one piece of information that we have been looking at to try to, as our job is to bring visitors to our site and then convert those visitors once on our site. So we've talked about in previous presentations about the marketing efforts to focus on SEO, PPC or paid marketing and so forth to bring vacationers to our site. But the next question is what to do when they get to our site. So just switching gears here to focus on a little bit of functionality on our website, something that we've applied during the course of this year. Many of you are likely familiar and have seen this. If not, opportunity to go check it out to see how your home is presented in our own search. And so the first thing we did was for many, many years, we have structured our site where vacationers would enter a location and they would be fixed to that location. So you could enter in a specific town, the town of Dennis, or in this case, the example here is a search that's based upon Mid-Cape. What we have now enabled on the site is the ability to utilize the map that's on the side. You don't need to specify the exact town and be limited to that town. You can drag the map, you can zoom in, zoom out the map to pinpoint exactly where you want. It just ease of use, familiarity, because this is a functionality that exists on many other sites that vacationers are going to be accustomed to it. So that was one piece that was rolled out, and I'm going to go over the impact of that in a second. But again, of course, the other area we need to look at is what does this look like on the mobile device? Coming into the season, we had this mobile view. It was simply a list. And as more and more vacationers, we probably have about roughly 60% of our vacationers on mobile. They're coming onto the site, and this is their view. So looking at this map view, of course, you can't fit that onto a screen. And so we took this view and have two alternate views. You either have this list view or you have the link here that says view in a map. And you can move on to viewing your property in a map view. And so just like on desktop, you can zoom in specifically to your region. And this is helpful in a couple different respects. And I look at like two types of vacationers. You either have the repeat vacationer, those that are familiar with the Cape and Islands, maybe they're familiar with a specific neighborhood, a specific beach, and they just want to drill into that location. Maybe this example here showing just the Dennis on the Dennis port side, or maybe they want to be up on the bay side, East Dennis. Now this allows them to drill in exactly where they want to be into a specific location. The other is, what about those that are not familiar? A first-time visitor, someone that's never been to the Cape and Islands and doesn't know where to visit. Again, in the past, they might have had to enter in a location, enter in the town of Dennis, and then they're fixed on that town, and they can't expand beyond that. They'd have to add more locations rather than the ease of use to be able to just pinch your screen to be able to go to a larger area or zoom into a more specific location. But in this scenario, if somebody had entered in all their search criteria and they zoom in and they get limited results, because they were fixed on that location, maybe there was a property that fit all their criteria, but it was in a different town, right? So the benefit of this map search allows them just to expand the map and see, okay, maybe nothing's available right here in this specific neighborhood, but let me expand the map regardless of the actual town and show more properties. So it's a benefit to the vacationer, hopefully to find more properties that fit their criteria. And so with that, what was the impact of that? What we've been looking at, a few notable areas of impact that this had. And we rolled out the map search back in December on desktop. We rolled out the mobile search in the beginning of March. So since the mobile release, what we've seen just the overall user experience for vacationers, twice the number of searches are being run. That's a result of just the ability to run a search more easily. You move the map and it runs a search. So I'm not surprised by that number. And that's not as significant as the increased number of sessions. So what we're seeing is more sessions by vacationers, up 5 to 10% each month. And what that means is that there are vacationers that are coming back. They're coming back and they're running a session being a number, the visit to the site on separate sessions are usually coincides with a separate day. And so bringing people back to the site is critical to anyone traveling, planning a vacation. Rarely do they search, find a home, and book a home immediately. They need a few days to plan that search. So bringing more people back more times is important. The number of results, the number of listings that are returned reduced slightly. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think as people drill into a specific neighborhood, they're going to get less search results, but they are also running more searches, so they're likely moving the map around, moving their locations, moving their criteria around to view more properties over time. A big question that always comes up is, well, what about that sort order? The sort order on the listings that come back. I want to highlight the vast majority of searches use the default. Don't change off of the default or just leave it on the listing quality. Those that do change, the most next popular is looking at the low to high price. Highlighting the listing quality being the primary usage, it highlights how important that listing quality is. If you've talked with our staff about your listing, oftentimes this is the very first thing we will look at is how are there any issues? Are there any critical issues that can be addressed? And that would be the number one thing to look at if you're looking to enhance your visibility of your listing on the site is identify if there's any critical issues to be addressed in your listing quality report. And then the last thing that came back is as we see increased number of searches and trying to drive each vacationer that comes to our site that runs a search to send an inquiry, it's worth noting that most vacationers do not send 5, 10 inquiries. We call them tire kickers that are just looking. You might receive an inquiry that just says, what's the total cost and or is this really available? Those are people that are generally maybe they're not as serious of an inquiry. You can generally tell which ones are a little more serious than others. So on average, vacationers are sending only 2 inquiries. So they're really drilling in. They're taking their time to utilize the search, utilize the filters to know what they're looking for, read your reviews, and when they send that inquiry, on average, they are very specific about what they're looking for. And even more, more than half of the vacationers send only 1 inquiry. So when they're finding your home, it's really targeted and it's a good opportunity, as responsive as you can be, as prepared as you could be to answer, whatever sort of questions they have, facilitate booking that, or really responding to any sort of questions that do come up from the vacationer is a prime opportunity to seal a vacationer or get a vacationer to commit. So overall, what we're seeing, strong results. Look forward to the next couple months, as many of you do have a few remaining weeks looking to secure those. What I will do is, I'm sure you'll have many questions. I'm going to turn this over to Carrie and get us a jump start on some of those questions. Carrie, I will turn it over to you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jim, for all that info. It's awesome. So I'm Carrie Hillman. I'm on the support team, And we had some questions come in when people were signing up for the Zoom meeting. So we just kind of put some together with some answers, and I'll go through those now, and then we will open up to more open Q&A at the end where people can come off mute and ask their questions, or you can put more questions into the chat. Also, we'll still be pulling those questions together for you. So, all righty. So, a few of these first questions that I'm going to talk about, these are really great if you listed with us a little later into the season. So maybe you got a little bit of a late start, or maybe you still have some weeks in the high booking season that you still need to book, or maybe you have a couple fall weekends or something that you still need to book. So these are all kind of some areas that you're going to want to consider to get those last weeks or weekends booked. So the first one, and Jim did touch on this, is what factors to consider when adjusting prices. So this is always a common question, great question, and there are so many things that you can keep in mind with this. So typically, as we did talk about earlier, when owners first set up their calendar, they might think to increase their prices a little bit. So again, like Jim was talking about, we saw big jumps during COVID in that price increase. And then this year we saw a much more conservative price increase. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about adjusting your prices now. How much did you increase your prices already this year? And should you reel that back in and be a little more realistic with that? And then you're going to want to also look at how long your listing has been active with us this year, and how many weeks do you actually still have available. So if you have a lot of weeks still available and you've been active all year, again, that's going to be a signal to bring your prices down. But it maybe you only have 2 weeks available, and you just listed with us a couple months ago. So maybe you don't need to jump down too far yet in your pricing. And then another thing you can do to kind of look at that pricing is compare yourself to your competition, right? So do a search on our site for the number of bedrooms you have, the town you live in, and just see how much inventory is left for the weeks that you still have available. So maybe you take a look and you have a 3 bedroom in Yarmouth, and there are, 50 properties still available for that week that you still need to book. So then you might really consider lowering your price down, or compare it to the other people that are available and see where you can fit. You don't have to be the lowest price, but you definitely don't want to be the highest price. Even if you feel like you have the nicest home, vacationers are, being more conservative this year, and you're much more likely to get inquiries if you fall somewhere in the middle or lower range of those prices. And then you should also check out the number of views per day that you're getting on your listing. So the average range of views per day is anywhere from 2 to 10, is pretty normal. If you're seeing a much higher number than that and you're not getting inquiries or bookings, then something is off with your listing. So, your pricing might be too high. Maybe your pictures aren't very good or something like that. So really take a look at your listing holistically and see what's going on. But again, it could just be your pricing. If you feel like your listing's perfect, maybe your pricing is really just too high. And then you could consider coming down there with the pricing. And of course, if you have specific questions about your home or your specific situation or your listing, you can always give us a call, because we're answering the phones and happy to help take a look at your specific situation. So then another common question that does come up, which we've been asked, is it time to offer an owner special or last minute alert for those last weeks that you have available? So again, a quick note on the difference of these two items. So the owner special is the one that is free and it can be posted anytime. And this puts a little light red banner across your listing. So as the vacationer is searching, they're scrolling through the search results, that light red banner is going to grab their attention with whatever special you have to offer. So the special could be, maybe you had just had a price drop, or maybe you decided to offer a little perk, like if you're on an island, transferable ferry tickets, or maybe you're going to offer a gift card to a restaurant or something like that, just to kind of grab their attention and get them in the door, click into your listing and get a closer look. So that's the owner special. And then the owner special works with the last minute alert. And the last minute alert is a paid service that the cost is $15 per week. And you have a minimum of 2 weeks that you have to run the last minute alert. So $30 to run that alert. And you can post these anytime that you're about 4 weeks out from the week that you want to get booked. So let's say, for example, right now, you could run a last minute alert for the last week of June, and it's going to cost $15 for each week duration that you run this last minute alert. So if you're going to start that now, it's going to cost you $60 to have that special or the last minute alert, running for the next 4 weeks. And the last minute alert is a way to highlight whatever you've put in your owner special. So the owner special will be a light red banner, and that will still be there. And then the last minute alert goes right below that. And it says, last minute alert, and it's going to trigger people to look at the listing and view your owner special to see what it is you're offering. So again, typically you're offering a lower rate or some kind of perk. However, if you just have 1 week left in the summer, you could say something like that. Only 1 week left of summer high season, book now, something along those lines. So those two are really two great options. And when you do the last minute alert, it puts you onto a deals and specials page. So any vacationer coming to our site, they're going to be looking at the site. They see we have a deals and specials page. They can go there, and you'll get extra viewing time with the vacationers. So hopefully resulting in more inquiries and a booking for what you've got available. Okay, so the next question we had come in is what is the general rule for shoulder season pricing compared to summer season? So again, this is another great question we get all the time. Unfortunately, there's not a hard and fast rule, but I'll give you some tips. So first of all, you kind of want to think, how much do you really want to rent your off-season weeks? So some owners are okay with not renting any shoulder season or off-season weeks. But others really do depend on that income from renting a number of weeks or a number of weekends. So if you're really determined to book those weeks or weekends, you'll want to be a little more conservative with your pricing. So go a little bit lower. And then in the off-season weeks, those can actually be half the price of a high season week or even less sometimes. So you're really going to be thinking to drop that price much lower. There's just so much availability in the off season, so it's very competitive. And again, think about tiering your pricing over the whole year. So a lot of times we talk to people about tiering their summer pricing, which is what Jim was talking about earlier. So the hottest middle weeks of the summer, those are going to be your highest. First 2 weeks of July, last 2 weeks of August, those are going to drop down a little bit. After that, you can kind of think of it that you've got the direct months on either side of the high season. Those are going to be a little bit higher, and then, a little bit lower than the summer. And then after that, really think about any weeks that kids are in school are going to be quite a bit lower. So, AKA any vacation weeks are going to be a little bit more desirable in that off season. But again, something you can do is search our site and look at what your competition is charging. Look at the houses that are in your neighborhood or your town, see what they're charging, and make sure you're super competitive so that you'll get the inquiries over somebody else who might have a similar home, but their price is a little bit higher. One other tip for that shoulder season and off season pricing is consider shortening the minimum night stay. So during the summer, it's very common to have a 7-night minimum stay. in the off season, winter season, you really want to think about dropping that down to 2 or 3 nights so people can do a weekend or a long weekend, still get down to the Cape, still rent your home. You can get some income, but they don't have to commit to a full week because that's just not realistic. Not many people are doing that. Um, all right. And then the last question here is, how should I be responding to an inquiry? So a couple best practices for inquiry responses. Number one, you really want to reply as quickly as you can to each inquiry message. Even if it's just a quick little message you send to them while you're waiting in line at the grocery store because you just got a ping on your phone, that you have a new inquiry, just send something quick, let them know that you received the message, and a quick answer to their questions could be helpful as well. And a quick note about that is to get those pings on your phone, you just have to make sure you opt into that to get a text message alert every time you get a new inquiry. And that's in your homeowner center. You can sign up for those. It doesn't mean that you're texting with a vacationer. You're just getting a quick alert to your phone to let you know that you have a new inquiry. So it's really helpful. And so even if that inquiry that comes in, maybe you think, oh, this is not going to work. Either your house is already booked that week and you hadn't blocked it off yet, or they're asking to bring a dog and you don't allow dogs. Send a friendly message back, show them you're excited you received their inquiry, answer any questions they have, and just let them know, oh, I'm so sorry we don't allow dogs. If there's any way that you're planning to board your dog, we'd be happy to welcome your group. Or, unfortunately, we just booked that week, or we're in the process of booking that week. If it falls through, I'll let you know right away. Or keep us in mind for next year if you think this would be a good fit for your family. Keep that door open. Make sure you're using every inquiry to the best ability you can. Um, okay, so also with the inquiry, okay, you're going to respond right away. You're going to send a friendly message. You can invite them right away to do a phone call with you to keep that booking process moving forward quickly. The phone call can kind of slow things down a little bit. So you just want to make sure you're trying to get on the phone with them as quick as you can to have that conversation. Again, it doesn't have to be a long conversation, but just that connection will go a long way in building your relationship with them, especially if they do become renters of your home. You want to make sure you're really building a strong foundation for your relationship with them in case any problems come up during their stay. And then once you've decided they're a good fit for your home and you're ready to invite them to book with you, really try to expedite that booking process quickly by using electronic signatures. So something like DocuSign to do the lease agreement. That is just so much easier for vacationers. They get an alert on their phone, they open up the document, they click a button, and they've signed the lease. And it might take you, the owner, a little bit longer to put that lease together, put it on DocuSign, but it's not much longer than if you just put it into an email. So seriously consider that and give us a call if you have any questions about how that works. And then also electronic payments are another way to really turn that inquiry into a booking as quickly as possible. The electronic payments, again, are so much easier for the vacationer. So that's offering anything like Zelle or Venmo or PayPal. Any of those type of electronic payments can really push that inquiry quickly into a booking. So those were the questions that we kind of pulled together in advance, but now we can go ahead and open up the Q&A to the group. Or actually, first I'll check in with Sarah and see if anything came in from the chat while I was talking.
Yes. So, well, a couple questions came in at the beginning. Roselle had a question of, do we track bookings by locale beyond the 3 regions?
Okay, that's probably a question for Jim. Do you want to chime in with anything, Jim?
And I apologize. And to go along with that too, just to add to it, also wondering, Roselle is wondering if we track the bookings of different levels of rentals, luxury, moderate, economy pricing.
So we certainly have, what was the first one? Different regions beyond.
Yep, beyond the 3 regions, so Cape and Island.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I mean, for you, Roselle, have dug deeper than the vineyard overall, but we I know that on the Cape, we do boil down the Cape numbers to at least to the area. And I'm not sure if it makes much sense to go down to the town level, but Jeff, you may be able to confirm if we can pull those similar numbers, say for the Vineyard, maybe more
Yeah.
popular towns.
Yep. Thanks. Hi, everybody. Glad to have you all here. This is great. Um, yes, of course, we have that data. We pulled it, 25 years ago when we were getting started and trying to figure out what's important and what isn't important. And frankly, that was either so detailed or kind of irrelevant. It just kept changing year to year that we stopped tracking it because the main reason we just didn't see any real relevance to it. Like, is Edgartown more popular than Vineyard Haven or something like that? We do have the data. We just haven't, it has not been actionable in quite a long time.
And then in regards to Sarah, the other question about just down to the type of home, again, similarly, I mean, not off on hand at the moment, but we do take a look at, we have the data, just takes some time to digest it, in terms of, uh, we have a lot of the search data, like what are people searching for? What are their price ranges? What are they inquiring on? And then when it gets down to the booking levels, I mean, we certainly can dissect that a little bit, not readily available. But it generally falls in line. Just because the vast majority of our homes do fall within the general price range. I think you'll have more fluctuation as you get into price ranges that are, say, 10,000 and above. I think it's something that we can certainly dig into if there's some. I think what I would be looking further into is just what are the trends for a vacationer. One thing I was looking at to see if it provided any sort of data was like, what was the average price range? What was the max price range that when people put in a max price range, they can put in a minimum and a max. And I was curious if that provided any sort of value. And what I was seeing was that even like down 1, 2 bedrooms, the price range, the average was still quite significantly high. And I think what people are doing, it might be like a 1 bedroom average was around price $3,000. But I think it was what people are doing is just taking the slider to slide down a little bit just to get out of the very high end homes. They just slide it down just so they can focus on something a little more realistic, even if it's not down to the exact price range that they're looking for. But it's stuff that I'm going to start to look at is just what sort of usage. I think there was another question in here about can we determine how many people search for properties with and without dates? And so, yeah, there's the large number of people that search without dates. That's generally just to get started. You can enter in a location, click go, location and the bedroom size, click go, and just to see what they have see what's available. And so, while there's a significant portion of people that do initially search using no dates or no price, over time, the more serious ones that want to send an inquiry are adding those filters. So that's something that overall we'll be taking a closer look at is just the further trends on vacationer criteria, usage of filters and so forth.
The other thing I might mention is a pricing report that we put out. I think we put one out last fall where we look at the homeowner pricing and for different size houses, the effect of being water proximate, air conditioning effects, that sort of thing. So maybe somebody could pop that link into the chat. And if you're new to the site, you probably have no clue what we're talking about with that. But it's pretty cool. It's got a heck of a lot of data that tries to drill down, answer the question, help you answer the question, how do I price my house? So it gives you a lot of hard data to work with. I wouldn't rely on it exclusively. There are lots of other factors to take into account, but it's just, if you love data, you'd love this thing.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jeff.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask you what's up next, Sarah. What do
Oh,
we
okay.
have?
Paul had a question in the chat, but he also has his hand raised. So I thought, Paul, if
Oh,
you'd like
it's
to unmute your.
okay. Hi, everybody. Um, so in the task section where you can get up the settings, like the reminders, um, I've just always had this issue where um, the arrival date is, let me just go back to it so I can see what I'm talking about here. Like there's too many options for before arrival date. And we need more, I need more after arrival date
Hmm.
because we like to remind ourselves to pay the 11.7% tax, for example, um, or send a thank you card to the people that came, or, whatever. But there's like tons of settings that are miscellaneous, like 1 through 10, and they're all set up for days before arrival date, where I need um, like 3 more at least for days after departure date.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I've been asking that for years. Sorry, guys.
Yes. And for everybody else, Paul's talking about in the booking management section, where you can kind of track for each booking that you have. There are a lot of sections where you can track things you have to take care of before they arrive. And he's asking for something to track things you have to take care of after they arrive. And I think we have discussed having a drop down where you can select after arrival or before arrival. And so it's on our list as one of our many things to do. But
Like
thank you
even
for
if we could put
reminding
a
us.
negative number in there, like, -10, it would be
Hmm.
-10 days after the arrival date, like
Right,
maybe count
right.
backwards or something.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
have the
Okay.
ability to toggle the field to pick whatever you wanted to do. And I know that would be kind of a nightmare for a programmer. Um, and then the other question I had is, I mean, I've never had, I think this is our 5th year. I've never had 3 weeks available in July and August right now. And I have steadily increased my prices a little bit. Now we're not on Cape, we're in Wareham, but it's a really quaint neighborhood and people love it. And we have great reviews and all. Um, so I'm going to take a close look at the price decreases and do what you said, Jim and Carrie. But is there any like pricing module assistant that we might think about for the future, or so we don't have to like really? Is there anything dynamic like some of the others might offer, or is that
Oh, do you want to take this one, Jim?
is that is that like a oh my
No, I
God,
mean
why did we let him
it's a
talk?
great question, and it's clearly it comes up every single year, whether it's it came up, during the boom of the pandemic as well. It's just when, how high should I increase my pricing? It's there are tools out there that give dynamic pricing that I don't, if you've looked at some of those, I'm not sure how valuable those are for our region. As Jeff mentioned, we do have the pricing analysis report that gives a little bit of a guidance. But uh, at the moment, we don't have a tool available that kind of generates this dynamic pricing. And I think the pricing report is the best place to start. And I think what we all often recommend is kind of the comparison analysis against, well, what's your home in Wareham look like, and where does it sit against your competition, if you will,
Right.
price range, just to get a sense of like, are you in the right ballpark? Like, is it, are you on the upper end of comparable homes or in the middle? Give you some sort of sense of where you sit. If you were to drop your price in certain weeks, how far would you have to drop to see where you would fit in that
Right.
in the comparison?
Yeah. No, I'm a real estate agent, so I get
That
all
was
that.
you.
Yeah. It's just I don't do it like the barber's hair, kid's hair is long kind of thing.
Yeah,
So I just have to look at it. I don't go in, I just set it and forget it and kind of cross my fingers and see what happens.
yeah.
But yeah, all right.
Can I add one more point? When you're doing the comparison of homes, if, for instance, you have a 3-bedroom home, increase the search to looking at 4-bedroom homes as well. So maybe slightly larger than the home you have, because that way you will come across comparable homes that have amenities similar to yours, but you will see if the majority of homes that come up, if you arrange them by price, highest to lowest, you'll see where yours fits in. And if you see that the first dozen homes that come up are all 4 bedrooms, and yours is in the mix in terms of price, it may be an indication that people are, finding a bigger home for the same price as yours with the same amenities. So that's what I do when I'm looking at comparing homes. Just, stretch it a little bit and look at a larger.
Right. Thank you.
Andrea
Okay.
was wondering, do you find a danger in lowering price and getting bad guests, like college students who may damage a home?
So, I mean, there is always that risk that your price is going to be low enough that college students are going to think it's a great option. But I think there's a lot that you can do with the screening process to make sure that you get the right guests into your home. So you definitely want to ask questions when you're doing the inquiry messages back and forth. You definitely want to try to get on the phone call. And if you do your due diligence in screening your guests, then you won't end up with a group that doesn't fit with your house. Now maybe some homes want college students that are going to fill the house and pay the price, but if you don't want that, then make sure you're really screening your guests and you find out why they're coming to the Cape and what they plan to do and who's in their rental party. And these are all really normal questions that you can ask of the group that's coming in. And, just make sure you know who they are and who's in the group. And then I think you'll find that you end up building that foundation, as I said earlier, for having a relationship with these guests. And they're not just coming into a stranger's home. They really know who you are and what you expect of your guests while they're there. Okay, Sarah, what else do we have from the chat?
Yep. Another one from Andrea was, during the summer months, do you recommend lowering the minimum stay from, say, 7 nights to something else?
So this is something that you can do if you feel like you're having trouble booking your summer weeks. You can definitely lower the minimum night stay, and that will help you to get more inquiries and more bookings. You just want to be careful that if you lower it to, say, 5 nights, don't allow that 5 nights to span a long weekend. You want to keep it within the week time frame if possible. And that way it won't mess up. If somebody wants to rent a 7 week right after you do the 5 day, they'll still be able to do the full 7 Saturday to Saturday if that's what you've been running. But it's okay to do a Monday to Saturday, just to get someone in there if you want. And, that is a way to get more people to inquire, is definitely lower that minimum night stay if you're ready to do that, if you want to do it.
Great. Roselle mentioned the Vineyard and Nantucket seem to have greater growth at higher rental prices. I'm assuming. I'm simply curious as to what level of rentals are thriving given the current economic concerns.
That is a great question, Roselle. Jim, do you have any insight on that?
I think the same thing would have. I think we'd have to look closer at the data in terms of our booking numbers, or just taking a look at the areas at the moment. Yeah, I mean, at what price point do we start to see some of that really get impacted, given the economic conditions? We'd have to take a closer look. I don't have a answer to that specifically, but certainly understand the question.
And how about one more from Roselle is there a recommended percentage that we encourage homeowners to reduce to entice travelers?
Well, So like I mentioned before, think about maybe how much you increased your pricing this year and then look at Jim's graph that he showed us of how much you should be increasing this year. So if you increased 5% this year, maybe drop that back down and make it so your increase is only at the 1% that Jim's chart was showing us. Jim, do you have anything else to add to that?
I do.
Joan
Oh,
does.
Joan does. Okay.
Roselle, I saw your post on our Facebook community page, and I thought it was excellent. And if you want to unmute yourself, you can probably better explain it. But what you said was that you decreased your remaining week or weeks by 25% and added it as an owner special, and that really attracted attention, and it got those weeks booked. Roselle, and you felt that was an attractive, and I agree with you. It's more attractive than saying 10%. And yes, you're perhaps leaving some money on the table, but you're getting those weeks booked, and especially on the vineyard, um, it's sometimes difficult the closer we get, and with the difficulty of procuring ferry reservations. Roselle, do you have something to add to that? Oh, maybe she left. Anyway, 25% and highlighting that in an owner special, and also be sure to post or to change your price on the calendar to reflect that
Hi,
discount.
Joan.
Hi there.
I am here. I'm just a bit of a tech idiot, so I was fumbling around with how to unmute myself.
Oh,
First of all, I really appreciate this session. You've addressed a lot of really important issues, and I find that even though I've been doing this for years, there's still a lot to learn. I don't know how I came up with the 25%. I know that, as I said in my post, that based on my own shopping habits, a reduction has to be valuable to me to get me to take action. I'm in a position, having owned my property for a number of years, to be able to take that kind of reduction, which is also helpful. Honestly, I was surprised that the 2 weeks I had available became booked that quickly. I did not expect it, given what I've been reading about economic concerns. But I'm happy I did the owner special. I think it was very helpful, and I'm not sure what else to say. Do you have any other questions?
No, just that you're a fountain of knowledge.
Oh, that's very kind, Joan.
Oh, we really appreciate all of your thoughtful suggestions in Facebook community, and I think you've become a trusted ally for many other fellow homeowners.
Well, thank you, Joan. I'm going to sign off. I wish you, Joan, and Jeff, and all of the staff a wonderful summer.
Thank you too.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
We have a few questions still in the chat. I don't think we're going to be able to get to them today, but I'm copying those over so that we can have a staff member return some answers for you here within the next couple of days for anybody that we may have missed. We can take one last question, Paul, if you wanted to ask your question, because I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah, thank you. As we're thinking about this, I just found your Facebook community and joined it. Does anybody post their listings on like the local communities? Like I'm off Cape, I'm in Wareham, but like Wareham has a whole bunch of local Wareham helping Wareham kind of things. Is that something that you'd recommend posting I don't know, or posting it anywhere for that matter?
Oh, yes, definitely. Yeah, you can throw that "We Need a Vacation" listing up on any of those other Facebook pages or to your personal Facebook network, or
Not working.
we see that happening a lot through Facebook and Instagram. And it's a great way to spread your listing to your networks. And of course, Jenny's on the call here, but she is already spreading our website and listings on our Instagram and Facebook groups. So it's definitely getting put out there into the social media.
Yeah, extra exposure, of course, is always great. Just keep in mind if you're keeping track of your views and you get a bump in views, could be that you posted your listing on Facebook. So might not be anything wrong that you're not getting 100 inquiries. Just may have posted that recently to social. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. Great presentation. Good job, Carrie. Good job, Jim. Thank you, everyone, for your time today and spending an hour with us. Honestly, we appreciate you all.